couple of days I haven't been well. And you know how that is when you're lying around in bed and you've got all this time to think, and I don't really like it much. I much prefer to be being creative and doing things and applying my mind and my energy elsewhere. But anyway, it was an enforced rest and time of reflection. The first period of reflection, all I noticed was how my mind has this habit of just thinking up shitty stuff and that I don't want to think. And anyway, I was grazing through YouTube at one stage, just briefly, and I saw a title which was an Oprah show, and it was something like the biggest lie that women tell themselves. I might not have got that exactly right, but I clicked on it just for a few minutes, and basically what the psychologist who was on Oprah was saying was that the most common answer from women about what they're most afraid of in life is being alone. And they were commenting on how common it is for people to say, oh well, it's better than being alone, meaning putting up with rubbish from whatever situation they're in with somebody else. And it got me thinking about that and how I used to be really afraid to be alone, and how that mere fact dictated the choices that I made in life, or the choices that I didn't make. Well, obviously not making a choice is also a choice. And how so much unhappiness that I lived through earlier in my life was a result of my fear of being alone. When I got really presence to that was one day I was with a friend and she was visiting the city that I was living in, and I was driving her around the hills. It was really beautiful, and I was complaining. I was complaining about my life, my relationship, and the things that I had to live with. And as she listened to my complaints, I think she really felt enormous compassion for me, and also confusion. She was thinking, why are you there then? You know, if it's that bad. And it did feel that bad. And I said, and I felt into it for a moment, and I said, because I feel like nobody else will love me. And she looked at me and she said, Tiamara, that is so sad. And I thought, yeah, it is, isn't it? And she said, you are totally lovable. And that was that conversation. But that triggered a complete change in me, where I became committed to knowing and understanding what it was to love myself, because I realized in that moment that I didn't, and to get liberated from my fear of being alone, so that I could make choices that were healthy, that were positive and happy for me in life. And I must confess, it took me many years before I finally left that situation. However, I'm very conscious of the steps that I took in order to get free of that. And I'm talking a fundamental fear. I was adopted at birth, so the first 10 days of my life I was pretty much left alone in a hospital bed. And for anyone who's, been adopted or through abandonment issues early in life, you'll know that that kind of sets up a real association with fear of aloneness. And I'm sure that it's a human state as well. I don't think it takes early abandonment to know what that feels like. But it was certainly a strong factor for me. And in the following years, before I left that situation, I knew that the day I loved myself, I would go. And so I got committed to doing that. So what I want to do, I want to share with you the steps that I took to getting free of being alone, because I can tell you now that I am no longer afraid of being alone, and that my choice of who I love is from a state of freedom of being. and where I am in life and what I do is not because I need to be with something or someone. So, and if it is, it's a kind of free need. It's a free kind of need, which is a really different need than when you think you're actually going to die if you don't have it, or that you'd want to kill yourself because it would be such a miserable place. So the first thing I did was I noticed that I didn't love myself, and I got committed to loving myself. And I truly believe that the key factor in learning to love myself was the use of affirmations. I simply would go to the gym and I would tell myself, I'm lovable, I'm lovable, I'm lovable, I'm lovable, and I have done that for years and I continue to do it. I'm enough, I'm enough, I'm enough, I'm enough, I'm beautiful, I'm beautiful, I'm beautiful, I'm beautiful, I'm worthy, I'm worthy, I'm worthy, I'm worthy. I have done gazillions of affirmations, and I tell you what, they work, and you have to keep them up. But they do create a new default. So I'm definitely less likely to go into self-loathing and self-rejection and feelings of unworthiness than I would have in the past. Not to say that those feelings do never arise, because they do. And I continue to consciously work with them. The second thing I did was I sought out and discovered my purpose in life, and I married it with my passion in life, and I full on lived into that. And I cannot tell you a better thing for loving yourself and for getting free. Find what you love, find what your purpose is, and do those things and live into them, because there is this utter transformation of your life and your state of being when you do that. You get full, so you don't kind of feel alone anymore, because you're full of all this amazing divine energy and these thoughts and this creativity and these plans that you have to do and goals you have to meet. And because purpose is always about something greater than yourself, it's something bigger than you, so you're not thinking about yourself so much, you're not so concerned with yourself. And you definitely have a sense of connection, because you're actually living into something that causes connection, that is about connection. The third thing that I did was I got really clear about what I wanted in relation to love in my life. What was that going to look like when the day came when that was right? And yeah, I just got really clear about that, and I made lists, and I felt into it, and I observed other people and other situations, and I really explored, what does that mean? What is that person going to look like? What kind of life will we have? And how will I be in myself? The non-needy me. The fourth thing I did was I lived alone. So I actually kind of I chose to live alone. I chose to live actually alone, and in my case I did an extreme version where I lived far away from my own country, so on the other side of the world where I barely knew a soul, and I lived in a house on my own, and I didn't do that to torture myself. In fact, it was a beautiful experience. But I did have to wake up every morning on my own. And I had always been in a relationship. And I used to wake up and think, gosh, what is the point of anything? And this is a woman who's living her purpose already. But I would still think, what's the purpose of anything if I can't share it with somebody? And I would lie in my bed and I would breathe. And I'd just breathe out into the universe, into consciousness, and I would connect with consciousness. And that might sound really airy-fairy. And I was lucky that I'd had years of meditation practice. But if you haven't, then just learn to meditate. Learn to connect with that which is greater and bigger, and of which you are, and that you come from, and that you'll go to, and that we're all connected. So learn to connect to that place, and don't worry if you can't feel anything. It doesn't matter. Just be an opening for it. Be a receptor and a connector and an availability to getting familiar with that place. Another thing I did is I always had a friend to talk to. So if I needed to, I would pick up that phone or I would Skype and I would call a friend and I would offload my intense moments of loneliness and or despair. Now, I didn't do that to get pity. I didn't do it to indulge myself. I did it to free myself. Just because if it became overwhelming at any moment, I would just give it away, and I'd give it to someone who knew that that's what I was doing. So they were there to serve that in me, and I felt safe to do that. I think that's really, really important, that you feel that somewhere in the world there's someone you can talk to. Okay, the sixth thing I did was I did nurture relationships around me. I formed good friendships. I just had good friendships. I made good friendships. If they weren't there, it didn't matter. I nurtured I reached out to people and I nurtured the relationships around me. And then the day came when I no longer felt anything other than just that I'm alone. Here I am, I'm in this house, I'm in this world, I'm on this planet, and yes, I'm alone. And I'm connected, and I'm happy, and I'm full, and I'm on purpose, and sometimes I feel lonely, and that's okay. And from that place, I was able to start creating my vision of a relationship that would be full of freedom and full of fullness. From that place of happiness and contentment and connection and aloneness, happy aloneness, I was in a position to collaborate with the universe in creating and attracting companionship, love, happiness, harmony, togetherness. And when that arrived into my life, I was able to see it for what it was and have a deep, deep appreciation of it. And not from a place of need, a place of freedom, a place of the joy of loving and giving and sharing and being together. And you can need each other, but it's not neediness. So I hope that me sharing my journey and what I had to go through, the hard slog, may serve as some kind of guide for you if you're feeling that fear of aloneness. Because I tell you what, fear of aloneness can have us put up with abuse, with misery, with just totally substandard conditions. And you're worth more than that.